It's time for today's episode of the UGA Sports Live Podcast, recorded in front of a slightly tipsy studio audience at world-famous Champy's Fried Chicken. We will have the latest on Georgia Bulldogs football, basketball, and recruiting. Watch live and send us your questions on the 11 Alive Sports page on Facebook. Be advised this podcast is off the record and not safe for work. Also, be sure to subscribe to the UGA Sports Live Podcast on iTunes and Google Play.
Hey everybody, welcome to the UGA Sports Live Podcast with Jim Donnan on a Wednesday at 1 o'clock. Not our normal time, but we had some good reason for moving the show from Tuesday to Wednesday. Georgia started spring practice yesterday, and we were there to catch parts of it. And, of course, they had pro day today, so we're going to talk all about that. I am your host. My name is Roddy DeBulsey. I'm joined by Jake Roos, the recruiting superstar at UGAsports.com, guy who has all of your recruiting scoop and hobnobs with all the 5 stars and has all their good inside information. And, of course, legendary Hall of Fame coach Jim Donnan, former head coach of the University of Georgia Bulldogs, who is the main reason everybody's tuning in. Quick shout-out to our sponsors, Athens Ford, Aaron Overhead Doors, Your Pie, Academia Brewing Company, and Cable East, and 365 Game Day. Of course, we were at Champy's on Baxter Street, and we have the catfish plate out in front of us. That is the second order of hush puppies that they have brought out. They brought out the first ones, and these two vultures next to me wolfed down the
first. Hey, look, put all those out you can, and we'll put them away.
Those hush puppies disappeared instantly, so Josh had to bring out some more hush puppies. It's a fantastic catfish plate. I know Coach Donnan likes it. Jake likes it. There'll be I think the arm wrestle here in a minute, so you can take it home with them. And, of course, we're on 11 Alive Sports. That is the Facebook page you're watching this on. If you're listening to it, then you missed the show live. You can always catch it Tuesdays at noon on the 11 Live Facebook page. A great page to bookmark, a great place to get news. The 11 Live News overall page is fantastic because, they do a ton of original reporting. They do some aggregation so you can see all the stuff that you may have missed elsewhere. So be sure to give them a like. Yesterday, first day of spring practice 2019. I don't say that's the first day of the 2019 season because the first day of the 2019 season is the day after the 2018 season ends. They go right into the lift and they get right back to it. But we didn't get to see a whole lot of time yesterday. They had a kind of a brain fart. That's the only way to say it when it comes to how they got the media down there. We only got to see like 6 minutes. Well, most of the people only got to see about 6 minutes. I got to see like an extra 7. And we had our notes on the UGA Sports website. Go to thedogvent.com. You'll see it right there. It's got about 10,000 views on our observations from practice. A lot of new faces out there.
Definitely.
Georgia has a record number of early enrollees, 14 of them, although a couple are not able to practice. But
why don't we just go through those 14 real quick and make sure that we don't forget anybody because, we could rapid fire this in 2 minutes. Jermaine Johnson is a good-looking kid. Number 11, he's very physical looking, and he can run. And then on the other side, you got Smith, number 4, really looks good in his uniform, explosive, has got great feet. And, they're in a position where they're going to be going against some really good players, though, when you look at Cox and all those other guys out there. They're just a very, very good-looking group, or as some people say, that's really a good room.
Yeah.
Dean is a very quick, fast guy. He's not quite as tall as I thought he might be, but he's very explosive.
Kobe Dean.
And then I like the 2 defensive backs. Stevenson, very physical looking, very big, is probably as large as any guy we got out there in the secondary. And then Sign looks like he's got quick feet. I'm dealing with this on the off-season program that I was able to watch a little bit, not so much practice. And then
DJ Daniels.
And then we add in there DJ. Give me a chance, man.
No, you're the DBs. I was trying to stick with the DBs.
And DJ Daniels, we talked about him in the off-season when he was here for the bowl prep. Physical kid that's going to learn the scheme and going to give us some really quick experience there to go with the corners that we got back. But, I just look at Campbell. I just want to mention this one point. The fastest 100-meter in the country this year is 10.2 that I was able to look up online. Now, I don't have the resources like you guys look at and stuff.
No, you got a mile split.
But I understand. That guy's run a 10.3. And he played in a lot of games last year, and, he had more balls thrown on him because of Baker on the other side. But I just think he's going to be a real presence for us that add to that 14 we got. So then is there anybody else on that 7 that I mentioned there? I'm going from rote memory there on the defense.
Let's see. Obviously,
Marshall
Tresman's not out there, or Ryan Davis.
He's playing Dasher. He had shoulder surgery. He's not going to be out there this spring. I just kid Dash, but he has a great physical group. He listed on the injuries we had, and he also had Rochester, which nobody knew about. It had knee surgery.
I don't know how he knew that.
But anyhow, Marshall,
Ryan Davis can't
go. He can't tight end, and then at quarterback, very physical looking kid as far as tall, lean, lanky, can run. Going to need to put some weight on for sure.
Juan Mathis was skinny.
He's not as prepared probably as these other quarterbacks that have come in here, but it's hard to compare him to Eason, Fromm, and Fields. But I think he's got some upside, and he's got a little bit of elongated release, but I think he's going to come along pretty quickly. And then give me some more here. I can't think.
Clay Webb on one side.
Well, we know about Clay Webb. He's going to be right in the thick of things. And I could see him being the backup center in a New York Minute because it just depends on what they do with Salyer. If they play him at guard or center, Hill looks really good there. He played last year.
Warren
McClendon is going to be really good. I don't know if he's going to get to play this year, but he just looks like a big old teddy bear, can move around pretty well. And, I'm thinking out loud here, but our offensive line's presence there, when you just look across the board, the way that line, a lot of times it tilts, but you got those 2 bookend tackles that look like the leaning tower of pizza up there, and then you got, Kenley just won't go away. He just keeps on fighting hard, and then you got Hill, and then you got the fight between Mays and Kenley and Salyer and Cleveland for that other guard spot. But
we're leaving one guy off, and this is an interesting guy. A guy that we've
list here,
that's Tremel Walthour.
Oh, good gracious. We're glad he's back, and you had him. I always forget him, but you remember. But I think he's a guy who's really benefited from being gray-shirted, and he being in the off-season programs helped him. And I can't say enough about the job that Sinclair and Ed and all those guys have done, Jamil and Rodney. There's some really good assistant strength coaches to go with Sinclair. So is there anybody else on the 14?
No, not. I mean,
but to have those 14, I was talking to Marshall Malco a couple weeks ago, our personnel guy, and it's just an interesting deal. And then Kirby said it yesterday. I don't think I can ever remember anybody having that many guys enrolled, but can you imagine what our spring practice would be like, losing the guys we had that transferred, losing the guys we had that came out early to try to practice without those 8 or 9 guys?
Well, I mentioned this to Michael Barnett yesterday. They're down 3 defensive linemen. Dash had the news that Julian Rochester was out. I don't think anybody knew that. You got Mikael Carter's out. David Marshall's out with his Liz Frank thing. They just took the screws out, according to Kirby Smart, and his foot. So this is, some long-term injury stuff there. And I'm like, Michael, do you think they're going to dial back any on I don't say the intensity, but just the amount of reps they do, because they're looking for bodies at defensive line. 3 of your guys, plus, Daquan Hawkins-Muckle is gone, Jonathan Ledbetter's gone. I'm like, you're trying to scrap together a defensive line, and they're running, that it's going to be tough. So, and Michael Barnett goes, he looked at me like I'd grown a second in. He goes, man, this is Georgia. We don't dial back nothing. It doesn't matter if we don't have the bodies. Next man up, even if it is a walk-on.
Sure.
So they are going to – I feel sorry for those defensive linemen because they are going to be –
Well, I think it's going to help them, though. They're so
that O-line.
But I think it'll really help them, though, Roddy.
Yeah, you're right.
Because
you're right.
They're so used to being sub 4 and, like a human train running off into the field. We sub so much that I think playing more downs is going to help them. Davis is back. He's come back from that back injury, and he'll be a force in there. And then, you know, I think our D-line is going to be much improved, particularly when you add the freshmen coming in.
Yeah, that was what I was going to say. Is you've got an influx coming in June.
Yeah, I'm just
so
thinking
that'll
just
help.
spring.
Oh yeah, during spring, yeah, those guys are going to get their work in. I promise you.
It doesn't hurt you near as bad though in today's society because you only practice about 10 times where you can actually hit people. So. It's basically out there yesterday and all the times that they go out there without pads, you know, it's just it's really not fair to say, hey, okay, two-hand tag on, let's say two-hand tag Swift.
Yeah.
Can you tag him? No. I mean, you can't hard enough to tackle him, but you got to tag him too. But they run that against each other, but you can't really, you know, see a lot as far as except just the visual of lining up a formation against a defense and running full speed. But it's good. But I would just say overall, going into the spring, our talent level is, you know, there's going to be so much competition. It's going to really make those guys a lot better at every position. And we really have some good-looking defensive players on the hoof, on the perimeter. I mean, D-line is right there, but our backers and safeties and corners, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's going to be impressive defense. When I got back up to the media room, now I went down.
You got something to eat?
Well, no. If they'd had something, I would have. No, they did feed us at noon. We had the Kirby Smart press conference.
What'd you have?
Thank you.
Some sandwiches, some chicken wraps. It was it was pretty good.
So thank you, Claude Felton, for feeding the media.
And then to get some champions over there.
Yeah.
That's right.
So we had a nice little snack over there, and then we went out at 4:28 to watch the team practice, the parts that we did. When I came up from practice, I had spent most of my time down on the offensive side. Jake went and covered the defense. But as I was walking out, I passed by the outside linebackers. And first thing I did when I got up there, I'm like, Jake, who's number 4?
Yeah, straight away came to me and he goes, hey, who's wearing number 4 now? And I said, it took me a second to recognize who that was as well. It's Nolan Smith. And he's out there not looking much like a guy who was in high school a couple weeks ago.
You're out there with Brenton Cox, Adam Anderson, Jermaine Johnson, and
Anderson changed to 19 too, hasn't he?
Yeah, just from the eyeball test.
Aziz.
Aziz was the other one I asked you about.
He's changed his number to 13.
Yeah, I had to ask who was 13 as well.
Cook has changed to what? 4?
Yeah. So I'm like, hey, who is this defense outside linebacker number 4? To stand out visually amongst that group says something. So just again, like you said, on the hoof, if you're looking for a ball player, you know, before he even took a snap, I'm just like, who's that? So
yeah, I would say every one of those guys in that room could walk in any room in the country and be a part of the room.
Be that guy. Oh, yeah. I mean,
that's as good a looking group on the hoof total as I can remember around here as far as one position.
No doubt. I mean,
if I'm Dan Lanning, I'm getting that poster made with all the kids on it. Yeah. Because then when they're all in the NFL, you're like, look who I coached.
Yeah. No doubt. He's going to be able to sell that a lot. And I think that, you know, you mentioned getting a chance to watch those guys yesterday. Nolan stuck out to you. I'll tell you, I thought that Nakobe was a guy who stood out. As you mentioned, he's a little bit smaller than maybe what you want. And he's still –
Don't mention his height. He's still a sore point.
He's still lean too, you know, but he's going to put it on. And the way he moves, though, it's not a huge problem for him. You don't think of a guy like Monty Rice being some, you know, big, bulky. Part of what makes him such a good player and the player that he is the way that he's built and the way that frame comes together.
Well, Roquan's not a giant.
That's exactly right.
You know?
Exactly.
And to add one thing to that, the intelligence factor he brings in there. Our defense, as I've mentioned many times on this program, is difficult in a lot of ways because it's so consuming from the standpoint it plays, you know, and takes into effect a lot of different elements, you know, not just the base, all the other stuff. And every people have that. But I would say that's going to help him come in here and play quicker than most linebackers. It is not that we don't have a lot of smart guys, but this guy – intelligence factor is going to help him get on the field too. And then the other thing is just the way that we go at special teams that really give these guys a little bit more impetus to get on the field, because you're saying, hey, I'm behind so-and-so. I don't know when I'm going to play. But, look, all of a sudden I can be first-team punt return. I can be this. I can be that. So that makes those special teams better too.
We got a question here from Ronnie Brown.
All right, Ronnie.
He's asking about these early enrollees, and I think this is a good question because we talked about the size of that group and how big it is, unprecedented really in that regard. He says, Coach, a lot is made of the benefits of being an early enrollee. As a coach, what are the expectations for the guys coming in early?
That's a good question.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things you got to temper your enthusiasm with a little realism there, because the guy's making a big jump. But the big advantage for them is the fact that they did have a chance to go through the conditioning and the weight training and all that. But I've mentioned this before, the 8 hours that you get with these kids that you can use any way you want to, where it used to be the first time you could talk to a kid, football-wise, was when spring practice first meeting was. But, that meeting time, all that stuff is just invaluable to these guys. I talked to Mac Brown, who just took the North Carolina job, and he was talking about that, about how much quicker he's got a quarterback that hopefully he's going to be able to play quicker. That I think it's Howell, that kid from North Carolina.
Yep.
And, he said it's just a really big advantage to be able to meet with them and teach them all this stuff before they even go out on the field, whereas and I never was able to do that, with our guys, because that wasn't the rule. I think it's a great rule, because if you're going to play ball, if you're better prepared mentally to play, then you're going to not make probably have as many injuries and things like that, because you're trying to do things physically without the mental part, So from Ronnie's standpoint, I would answer this very succinctly. You got to make sure that you expect as much as you can out of them, but also understand that they're just learning, and there is a big jump from the little pond to the big pond, and be patient with them, But these guys know coming in. You look at Kirby's MO here in Alabama; he'll play a young guy, so they're going to get their shots.
I like the fact that you can see on the field what that spring prep does for him. Georgia loses an interior lineman. Cade Mays steps in, doesn't bat an eye.
Nope.
No problems. Cade Mays goes down. Trey Hill comes in. Hey, Trey, guess what? You're starting against Kentucky.
You're the center now.
Yeah, you got to make the designations. You got to make the call the protections.
Okay.
Killed it. Fantastic. Some of the other guys that came in as freshmen, they played right away. There is a visible difference amongst the guys who come in June and the guys who come in here in January. And I think part of it, when it gets to the expectations of them, I know we talk about what they do on the football field, but just that jump from high school to college life, getting used to the academics, getting used to
everything
living
involved.
on your own.
That was hard for me, and I wasn't trying to go to practice.
That's why I bring it up. I'm like,
Notwithstanding homesickness and all that.
That's my point.
That's where you got an advantage when you come in. You can go home on the weekends and do some stuff. But I would say this too, listening to you, about the guys playing early. Usually, though, the guys that are the most highly recruited, the 5 and 4 stars, are the guys that are going to play because of their talent.
Right.
The guys that you bring in that you feel like going to develop, they're going to have to develop, and they're not going to play unless there's injuries. That's why you see some guys getting redshirted, and it's not because they're not good enough, but it just didn't. The chips didn't fall where they may for guys like Smith last year. And, some of the guys that were held out because they had people ahead of them, and it's great because this new rule, you can play in 4 games, really helps them be ready to go. And who would have thought Jordan Davis would have played last summer? And, man, he just exploded on the scene.
Well, I know a lot of people wrote Eric Stokes off after his freshman year. Oh, he redshirted. He was a project, and they just wrote him off. And then he's out there knocking passes down in the SEC championship game.
I'm glad you say that.
Speed.
I know.
I'm glad you guys are.
But the development.
I'm glad you guys are saying that, because we do have a question here from Chuck Ward, and it goes into something that we talked about kind of at the start of the show, and something that Kirby mentioned as well. He says, "So what about Warren Erickson? Is this guy just an afterthought at the center position now?"
He was working the number 2 spot yesterday.
I don't think you can call anyone on that offensive line group an afterthought.
I think Warren Erickson and Condon are going to come along and be good players here. They're just not quite as ready as some of these bigger kids, But You got Webb was highly recruited, and maybe Erickson wasn't quite as, and so you have a tendency to talk about Webb. But I think the thing that Coach Pittman does that I see is he tries to get the 5 best, and then he tries to get the next guys that can be multi-talented. That would be, if you're the 6th best guy and the center goes down, he's going to try to get you in at center.
Yeah, that's true.
If the tackle goes down, he might move a guard out. But so we don't really use the second team and third team line quite as much as depth at that position as we do the next best player. And I think that's what hurts Erickson a little bit right now. If you go 1 through 8 or 1 through 9, he might not be there in that regard, but he might be the second best center.
Absolutely.
So we'll just have to see how that rolls. But
and he's only a sophomore,
a redshirt freshman, but he does have good mental capacity and works hard. And there's always a place for a guy like that on your team. I like the way he works. He's a very efficient guy. You look at. So many of the centers we've had here have been really good. It just developed late. Lucky played for me this last year. He really came on strong.
Oh, yeah, he did. And I give a perfect example of development.
Right.
Some guys are not ready to walk out on the field at age 18 or 19 and go up against SEC competition. But
and he's
at
in
age
his own
20,
family.
21.
His own family. He got 2 other brothers. How many triplets? I mean, how many coaches ever coached triplets? And you start comparing them when we first looked at him. I said, but he really, Miles Lucky came on and it was tremendous last year for me. And when he got hurt, it hurt us a little bit. But I think, and of course, Dustin was a heck of a player. Mike was a good player. He was in a position where we had so many good linebackers. But let's get some more questions here.
Well, don't. And I will say, I wanted to say one more on Erickson. Don't write the guy off, particularly because I think people forget he played a lot of left tackle for his high school team. Georgia's still looking for tackles. He's on the smaller end.
What's his size now?
But he's got experience. I'd have to look at the roster. I don't have a roster on me currently, but. He played some tackle for them. They need some tackles. They need some help there. They need some depth. So possibly he's an option there. Also, this was a guy who won a state championship with North Gwinnett High School from that position. Was a team captain for them. So
I'll take any quick kid out of North Gwinnett.
I'm not writing them off.
I'm just letting you know that. I do want to give a quick shout out. This past weekend I was in New Orleans, which is probably why I'm sick. Went down there and saw a pair of sophomores named Perryman. Keep those kids in mind. Saw them at the Under Armour camp. Then the next day we had the Rivals camp. I actually drove down. I took my Ford Explorer, drove down there. I know this sounds silly, but one of the reasons the accoutrements in the vehicle itself are fantastic. So I got it set like I wanted, and I'm like, I can fly down, but by the time I get to the airport, an hour and a half to the airport, or an hour and 45 minutes, 2 hours ahead of time. Flight down there, coming out. I'm like, I can be 3/4 of the way there. So I went ahead, drove down, had my own vehicle, fantastic, great ride. And if you want something, is heated steering wheels.
That's a luxury you didn't know you needed.
I did not know I need that, but I don't think I'll ever have another vehicle without a heated steering wheel. Oh my God! And my aunt loves it. She has one. She has arthritis. And she says she drives all the time. She goes, it just feels good on my hand. So anyway, point being, our friends out at Athens Ford, who are great sponsors of our show and our website, UGASports.com, they have a deal right now on the 2019 Ford Explorer. I'm driving a 2016, 2017, but you can get a brand new one for $8,000 off of a 2019. This isn't the 2018. This is the brand new 2019 Ford Explorer XLT 202A Sport. That's $4,000 off from Athens Ford, $3,000 off from the manufacturer, $1,000 from Athens Ford Trade Assistance, $8,000 off of a 2019 Ford Explorer. Now, of course, you can get all the different packages. The package I got, they hooked me up with out there, has the seats that are just perfect. You adjust them. And I saw this when I didn't even realize this. You know the hatchback on it?
Yeah.
You can actually lift it to a certain spot, hit the memory button in it. And it'll stop at that same spot. So for someone who has a wife like mine who's 4'10", 4'9", I can make it so it doesn't open all the way to the very top and she can't reach the button. We can make it so it opens up just as far as she wants it to, and she can put the little memory hold thing on it. And I'm like, that. Who thinks of that? I'm like, that's just genius. So if you get a chance, swing by Athens Ford. If you don't want to get a brand new vehicle, you can get one of their pre-owned vehicles. All of their cars, anything under 80,000 miles on it, which I don't think they have anything over that, come with a lifetime powertrain warranty. You can't get that anywhere else. So new or pre-owned vehicles, lifetime powertrain warranty. And right now you can get the Ford Explorer for $8,000 off.
Clint Walker here, we'll jump back into the questions, wants to know, he's asking for predictions. We got a few people already asking for predictions. It's after day one of spring practice.
Predictions.
So, he says, I'll phrase it a little bit easier for us here. He says, how do you see this two deep D-line chart shaking out? Who's going to be in these spots? Who's going to be will these guys be back? Will these guys be ready? I'll tell you this. I have a major concern about David Marshall. That Liz Frank injury is a very tough injury, especially for a big guy carrying that weight on it. So I'm not saying that I know anything, have any particular insight on that. I just know that that's one of those that gets re-aggravated very easily and can become a problem for guys over the long term.
Yeah. It's just hard to predict that. I can't really.
Well, I mean, to me, I think I get
early
two guys. I get Jordan Davis and Tyler Clark, and then I start scrounging.
Good start.
I start scrounging for who's that third guy up there, and then who starts backing them up after day one. I honestly don't know.
I think that you're going to. I guarantee you, one guy. I'm putting this on record now today. He's not even out there yet. In this two deep, you will see Trayvon Walker, no doubt.
Oh, way to go out on a limb.
Wow.
Oh, man, you can go out on a limb.
Did you put that on record?
Hey, I'm just saying.
It's official.
You guys are over here saying you don't know. I'm telling you, Trayvon Walker will be on the two deep deal.
I would say that.
He's talking about spring practice. He's not at practice. You don't get to call guys ahead of time.
Trayvon Walker is the real deal.
He's built for it.
That's like calling shotgun on a trip we're about to take in 6 weeks.
Carlos,
I tell you one thing, just floored me yesterday, and I sent it to you guys. Those early predictions on the lines on the game that we're a 11.5-point favorite over Notre Dame. Good Lord! I mean,
that's
4 points over Florida.
Have they seen the tight end room?
14
quarterback room
over at Texas A&M. Hey, it's so early. It's so early on that stuff. But
I know.
Let's get some more questions.
I like this. This was a quick comment here from our buddy Chuck Ward. He says Nakobe Dean is a little bit bigger than Rennie Curran, a little bit smaller than Roquan. Just hope he's as good as
he's
either
big
one.
enough. I mean, I just said right off the bat. Sure. You got to. He's definitely big enough. I'm not even ever going to mention that again. But I tell you what, I do like there. I do like the way Tyndall and Quay Walker made tremendous improvement last year. Got a lot of reps out there, and then you've got Crowder and it hurt us when Monty Rice was hurt.
Yes,
I mean it hurt us because he was good at getting people there, and we'll miss Patrick. I mean he did a lot of good things for us. And
I always go back.
I hope he gets a good shot at the pros because he deserves it.
He does. I learned a lesson a long time ago when Rennie Curran came up, and everybody was talking about him. And then, he went on to lead the SEC in tackles, I think 2 years in a row or something like that. The guy was phenomenal. He was at Pro Day today when I was talking to Anthony Dasher. He was talking to Rennie at the same time. Rennie, big supporter of the program, comes back and helps guys out. But I learned not to take my predisposition for everything has to be bigger. Bigger's better.
Sure.
Smarter is better. Speed can be better. And Rennie saved Georgia's bacon many times. And if you can give me a guy with that kind of smarts, that kind of quickness, I'll take him over a guy who's giant with lead feet.
Yeah.
So
I'll take speed too. Yeah. I think the game is so speed oriented, and that's where Nakobe he can run inside out. And you saw what Roquan can do on all that. So what else we got?
Paul Trollinger with a good one here. He says, how many programs have the ability to be as competitive as Georgia with the 1s versus 2 on offense and vice versa on defense? How much of an advantage does that give you going into the season?
Well, that's why you got the haves and the have-nots. You got the same thing at Clemson. You got it at Alabama. You got it every good team nowadays, Oklahoma, anybody that's been in the playoffs the last 3 or 4 years, that's been the premium part of their team is the competition that they face in practice helps them be ready for the games. And that's something that Kirby stressed from day one here of trying to, the first year he went a lot ones versus ones because, we didn't have a lot of depth, particularly in the secondary and the O-line. But he's shored those up. And now, and I think it might have been when you were over in Thailand, we talked about the fact that our number one defense is going to get tested a lot better this spring because our number 2 O-line. It's going to really help us.
No question.
And I could see us going some one versus one, but I think the thing you got to look as the head coach, looking at your team and preparing them, is you want to build that confidence of your first unit on both sides. I always felt like when you got through the scrimmage, it'd be great if your first offense and your first defense came out of there thinking pretty good, and then, you're in trouble if your 2 defenses beating your 1 offense and vice versa. You know what I mean? So, or you got the wrong guys playing, but that's the whole point. Get that competition and work hard and build that first unit and build the depth.
Absolutely.
I want to talk a little bit real quick about the one of the questions that to go along with what he's saying there. Georgia's number 1 offense versus the number 2 defense. You lost a lot of wide receivers. We saw those guys at Pro Day today. We saw Riley Ridley, Mecole Hardman, Terry Godwin going through the drills, catching passes. Isaac Nauta caught a lot of passes. So it's like, well, who's going to replace those guys? We get that question a lot. And the rotation that we saw when they're just going 2 receivers, 2 quarterbacks. We saw Jeremiah Holloman and Tyler Simmons get the first 2 reps.
I think this next one's going to surprise people if this is any indication. Not that it is, but
no, the next 2 guys up, Trey Blunt and Demetrius Robertson. I think a lot of people have forgotten about Trey Blunt, and I'm glad to see him out there. And I will say that if you're DJ Daniel and you're backing up Eric Stokes, and you get you're going up against the number 1 guys, and it's Tyler Simmons coming off the line, Tyler's going to fly. And then if you get moved over and you get to go up one-on-one with Holloman's going to push you around, So your number 2 defensive guys going up against your number 1 guys are going to have it tough. But then if you're the number 1 defensive back, you're Campbell sitting there and Stokes sitting there, and you get Trey Blunt and Demetrius Robertson, well, Trey's no pushover, and Demetrius can fly.
Well, yeah.
So, again, to the coach's point, when you're loaded like that, like Paul Trollinger, and Paul's had a son who's been through it. This guy knows football backwards and forwards. So he's making a point. He's not asking a question. Paul knows that that iron sharpens iron.
The difference, though, to me, the difference that everybody needs to understand about wanting to get these depth charts the first day, I would think that Coach Hankton is going to play the upperclassmen first.
Absolutely.
And give them a chance, even though the younger guy might be better there. That's what I always did. You're always going to build your team around your seniors and give them every opportunity because they've worked for that, and they might turn out to be better, but you just don't move a younger guy in there right away. So, but the point I want to make about the competition, the drills we do, you do one-on-one pass plays against the corners, go against the wide receivers, the safeties go against the tight ends, the linebackers go against the running back. Right. So you do that without anybody out there, and you run your drops and your coverages. Then you add the half-line skeleton, which I really like, because if you just take the half of the field and half of the team, and then you take the other half of the field and the other half of the team, and you just throw it to one side, the other side's just basically doing a rep without anything going on. You know what I mean? Right. They're just decoy. So very good teaching by Kirby. They do half-line skeleton before they do full.
I did not know that.
That's why you come to the show, man.
Just saying. We're never going to see that much for our practice.
So you go out there and you have, like on the one hash, you might have to the field, you'd have a tight end, flanker, fullback, quarterback against an outside backer, Mike backer, strong safety, and corner, and you run a combination route. Right. Then back in the boundary, you'd have a split end, tailback, free safety, corner, weak side backer, and you run in your area. But you really focus in on a quadrant of the field there.
Right.
And then you do the same thing with your running game, where you just do the strong side. You do we do inside run, where you just have guards and centers. But now sometimes you do half line. If you're option team, it really helps you not only running the option, but it also helps you defending it because the backside's really not doing anything.
Pointless, yeah.
So you want to do point of attack. So that part right there, like Paul was talking about, you get to see a lot of one-on-one, half line, full 7-on-7, and then team pass. The other thing we do on team pass, I'm talking a lot here, but I'm giving you my knowledge.
Good stuff.
The team pass is it'll be full speed for maybe one or two guys rushing the passer, and other guys will pull off a little bit, so you just don't have that bunch up where you could get some knees hurt and everything. But you're getting the symbolism of a full-speed pass rush, and everybody in the back end's playing full speed. Maybe just the left end and left tackle will be rushing. So, and you never know who it is. You get your set there,
really?
And then you got – and he'll point to which two guys will rush, and then occasionally let a backer run through there. But that helps your quarterback a lot more than just seven. These guys that can throw 7-on-7, Yeah. Hey, what I want to see is how you do it when the guy's in your face.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely.
Let me see you throw it with Adam Anderson bearing down on you, knowing that he's got 9-foot-long arms. And just because his hips
runs a 4 flat,
just because his hips are over there, doesn't mean he can't get to your arm holding the ball.
Right, and that's another drill that we've talked about. It's not very fair, but while those receivers are doing that one-on-one routes against each other, the defensive line is rushing the passer, left tackle, like Anderson's rushing against our left tackle, Andrew Thomas, and. It's a pass rush drill, and it's for the defense, but it helps the offense too.
Absolutely.
All right, we got a couple more questions here on the wide receiver front.
Don't forget Kieris Jackson.
Brian Murphy says, "Who do you think are going to be the three?" I mean, it's incredibly early to predict that as well, just like the D line.
I would say two right off the bat, the first two, and then is it going to be Robertson, Jackson? Those are guys you're going to draw from. Then you got Blaylock and Pickens coming in, and that in the summer you got to hope that they're going to learn everything. Coming in June.
They had Kieris Jackson running with Charlie Warner on the route.
I like that combo.
Your slot and your tight end. When they're running that particular guy
and another couple guys not to forget here. Micaiah Tongue also coming in at the wide receiver spot. Very physical kid, guy who plays a complementary role.
The problem with him. Kirby Smart's defensive coach, he'll grab him and put him on defense.
He can play there as well. He's very
it's
good.
A great problem to have, but I guarantee you get those coaches over in
Hello, Mark Webb.
Yes.
I used to tell our coaches, I'd see a defensive coach talking to an offensive player during while they're eating lunch or something, and I'd say, that sucker's over there trying to ask him, hey, you're not getting a lot of reps. Wouldn't you like to come over and defense? And then you go in the meeting, he said, I was talking to this guy today, and have you ever thought about him playing defense? I said, yeah, you probably over there promising him to play. Well, that's good, though. But
Jarvis Hanna here mentions another guy and has a question. He says, does Lawrence Cager ends up having a huge role in this Georgia offense?
He's got to. I mean, there was no way that Coach Coley would have brought him here, particularly knowing what he could do, having coached him, knowing what we have here. You don't bring in a senior transfer like that unless you think you can use him. And particularly, he fills a void for us as far as a go-to guy, big, strong guy. And then, of course, we still haven't mentioned, every time we start talking about it, we haven't mentioned Tommy Bush and
Matt Landers.
So,
you're going to have three guys there. If you're looking for your big-bodied red zone threat, you've got three guys kind of to pick from out of that group. You got to think one of those guys is going to be able to step up and produce.
And Holloman was money last year. Look at him against Florida. Look at him against Missouri. He's as good as anybody on the back shoulder. And
he's ticked off. He had a bad Texas game. Per his standards, he's like, I had a bad game. And having covered the kid, he's going to come back to say, hey, look, that was just a one-off. Look what I can do, and he's going to torch some people. So
no doubt,
can't hold that against him.
No, he's holding it against himself.
Absolutely.
He's frustrated.
I mean, he wasn't the Lone Ranger in that game.
Oh no. No, but of course, what did he do? He said it was me, it was my fault. I did this, I did that, and you just know that when he's doing that last set of reps, he does like two more.
Oh yeah,
because trust me, we've seen
that's
Jeremiah.
That's how Mama Holloman raised.
We've seen that kid. Work
I heard you say brain fart, so I can say this. But, having lost that championship game and all, as much as we tried to get ready and everything, it was like beating farts out of a dead mule to get our team ready to go. I don't know, we just didn't, for some reason. I hate it and Kirby alluded to it there in some of his, worked hard and did everything, but, those 3 defensive players hurt us not in that game.
I think that you're going to see Jeremiah Holloman, Tyler Simmons, Demetrius Robertson. That's going to be my 3 for now.
I like Robertson, too, from a standpoint. And I was talking to Marshall Malco a little bit about, he was in a league where just different type of coverages and all. Because, Marshall actually worked at Washington before he came here, so he really knows a lot about what you see out there. And you just don't see the physical defensive back play that – and they just threw a lot of long bombs to him, but he benefited from the weight program too. I tell you, our guys are cut, man.
Yeah.
They look good on the hoof.
Kirby pointed this out yesterday. He just mentioned the fact that Georgia has 2 master strength coaches, and I think back to, and this is not a shot against Mark Richt. This is more a shot at the administration, and it is a shot. They let one of the few, and I mean there were very, very few master strength coaches in the nation. They let one of them get away. He went to the Philadelphia Eagles, because he wanted a minimal raise. They wouldn't do it. Rick wanted it. He couldn't get it approved. They went to having 0 master strength coaches. And again, this is just within the industry certifications that, the knowledge that you have. Now they have 2 on staff. So go from 0 to 2, and Sinclair and his staff do an amazing job.
You talking about Sinclair and Ed?
Yeah. They just do, and the whole staff. They do just phenomenal job.
They do.
But you're right. When you look at that team, we saw guys like Jarvis Wilson. How many reps did he do today?
24.
You got a safety doing 24 reps of the 225.
He outbenched Kendall Baker. Kendall Baker.
Well, no, Kendall has really long arms too, so that's a long way. But you're right. Point being, when you see these guys, they're going to the combines, they're putting up crazy numbers, and it's not just that. I mean, the speed, the flexibility. Not as many soft tissue injuries because the guys are in shape.
One thing particularly that caught my eye out there yesterday, a lot of people were making a big stink after the Army All-American game about Tyreek Stevenson having a little bit of a gut on him, and they said, "Oh, this kid's let himself go. He's never going to get." Man, he ain't got no gut no more. I'll tell you.
Seriously,
3 months with Sinclair.
You guys have been covering this place a long time. Have you ever seen the guy on the hoof looks much better than he does?
Oh man, absolutely. He's going to be.
I'm talking about for defensive back.
And the thing about him is, you mention on the hoof, and then when you see him line up against the guy and how physical he gets with him, hey, that's a deadly combo.
It's going to be
deadly
fun.
combo.
You got the speed to go with it, but we're going to have, as far as one position that's going to be to me outside of that defensive end room. The corner room, not the one that's in the end of the house, but the corners. I mean, you got Stokes, Campbell, Webb, Stevenson,
Chris Smith.
He might be a safety. I mean, just keep going. You got Breeny. Breeny safety, speed. Woo.
Yeah, Poole.
Poole, McGee.
Yeah.
Tyreek's going to light it up.
I mean, 3 years ago, every one of those guys have been starting in secondary.
I was going to say, this is the depth that they wanted when they came in.
Don't you think every one of those corners?
No, I mean, I'm not taking a shot. I mean, would they start over Malcolm Parrish? Yes. Would they start over
I'm talking about the first year we were here.
Yeah, the guy with dreads that DeAndre Baker
Jawan Baker. Briscoe. Briscoe.
So that Ole Miss game, DeAndre Baker comes in, replaces him, and then doesn't lose his spot. And again, I'm not taking a shot.
That was 3 years ago. I'm talking about that Ole Miss game was
his first year. Yeah. That was his first year.
We're going into year 4, right?
Yeah. So I'm just saying, you take those guys, and again, good players, but these guys are better players.
Yeah.
That's
what it is.
Good point. Speaking of better, I want to give you a quick story about a better customer service situation. So our friend Ryan Lucia, he won an award for some of the stuff they do. He's at Air and Overhead Doors. He goes to Indianapolis, like right after I left, to go for this huge Overhead Door International Association convention. So he goes up there for convention, gets an award. I'll tell you about the award next week. But I kind of was joking with him on Facebook. I said, hey, he went to St. Elmo's. And I'm like, hey, bring me back one of their cocktail sauce.
Yeah, not bad.
Bring me the cocktail sauce. He actually buys one to bring back home.
What's he bring?
The cocktail sauce from St. Elmo's.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the serious stuff. And he's like, well, thanks to you now, I have to check my bag. Well, he didn't check his bag. He tried to smuggle it in for me.
Nice.
And of course,
Did he almost make it?
He did not make it. So he's at the Indianapolis airport, and they're like, no. And that stuff is toxic. You can hijack a plane with that stuff.
That's yellow cake.
Seriously, that's got enough horseradish in it to destroy that aircraft. But he goes to the airport. They confiscate it from him. He goes to the airport, and they have a little St. Elmo's inside the airport. And he goes up to him, and what does he do? He goes to buy me another one.
Unbelievable.
Right. And he tells the people at St. Elmo's, hey, they confiscated my cocktail sauce. They gave him one.
Oh, wow.
He didn't have to buy one. So I need to go by and get it from him. But just a random Facebook joke. What does Ryan Lucia at Aaron Overhead Doors does? He gets it and then gets busted for it and then goes to get me another one.
Yeah, think if he was actually getting paid to provide you a service.
That's just my point. If you're actually paying him to come out to and you don't have to pay him to come out to the house, he'll do that for free. He'll give you a free estimate, and they'll even do free financing on your stuff. Just saying, imagine if you had a guy who's willing to try to be a drug mule for you on some cocktail sauce, is willing to, what would he do for your house? That stuff is awesome. So, it'll be next week. I'm going to be taking some time off from UGASports.com to head down to the Beaufort area to go get some cocktail sauce.
I'll be there on Sunday. I'll just get it for you.
If you're going to get it, just bring some shrimp over
Well, I'm
here.
just saying. And then we'll bring it back here. We can have it next week with our show. But that's just customer service. Thank you, Fair and Overhead Doors. And before you get to that question, I do want to point out that last week was the pie day for your pie, 3.14. I went into the one on the east side. Place was not overly busy, but the line was going. I went at an off time. Got my pizza for $3.14. Got a beer. They also gave me a coupon to come back
for another
$3.14 pizza.
Why was that? Because you're riding the bus?
No, they were giving them to everybody. I'm just saying if you sign up, if you get if you get their
they
email,
gave you two, you could get two for 3 for 1.
Yeah.
That was pretty good.
Yeah, I'm just saying, again, customer service, the folks know what they're doing out there, and they know that, the first taste is free. They get you hooked on those pizzas.
I tell you what's good about that, though, to me, is how many younger people, the kids really like it. My granddaughter talked about all the kids out in Oconee County like to go to the ones because you get exactly what you want.
Exactly.
And, kids are pretty finicky about what they want, and that's pretty good.
They got the new double bacon BLT pie as well, which I saw you tweet about earlier. Ranchy marinara sauce, mozzarella, bacon bits, fresh romaine, grape tomatoes, cracked pepper, and a little ranch drizzle on the top. So
I know.
Might have to go check it out.
Grape tomatoes.
All right, I want to talk about Pro Day, obviously, because that was something that went on today. And, Coach, before we get into it, talking numbers and performances and that kind of thing, I was curious as to your thoughts about how many young guys we've seen kind of make that step, not only at Georgia, but nationwide, kind of pull out early and go declare for the draft. And then when you were advising these guys, what was the advice for the underclassmen?
Well, it's obvious when you got certain guys, like Champ Bailey, people like that, you just say, look, this is the best thing for you. Hines Ward was a little different because he was trying to learn the nuances of being a receiver. But Robert Edwards was coming off an injury, and both of them coming back were beneficial to both our team and also very beneficial to their careers. But I think the big thing that you do is give them, and I've talked to Kirby about it, and I know he does that, is have a relationship with the different general managers and all that where they can talk to these kids and say but now they got so many computerized things and all these way they rate them. They're pretty good about telling you where it looks for. But I think in defense of these kids too is they look back at who they got coming up in the program. In a case like Elijah Holyfield, what makes him think he's going to be in any better position next year, having gone through another year here, based on the competition he would have here, with White coming, being healthy? I just don't see him getting as many carries next year as he got this year. He would have played a lot, but Harrion will be back in a very good role, and then you got Cook who knows what to do. So he probably felt like this was his best shot. Now, his times, it's not that great, but his tape doesn't lie.
No.
He can play special teams. And all. So the answer to that is you tell them what you think and consult with the family, and you build that trust, and that carries over to the next guy 2 years from now, because they'll say, hey, this is the way Coach told me. But, it's a very hard thing to get drafted. I mean, it's hard to make that jump from college to pro. And regardless what position you play or who you are,
I try to point it out to guys especially in high school. Pro team has 53 players. Think about it, when you have a job, when the year ends, you expect to go to December 31st.
Sure.
On January 2nd, you expect to go back to that job, right? That's not the way it works in the NFL. Your job just hired 7 new players, to make that 53-man squad.
Plus about 15.
I was about to say then 15 undrafted guys, that they signed contracts with. So now you got to try out again. I think Andrew Thomas, he went to he and Jake Fromm both were invited by the NFL to go up to the combine and see how it works out. And I asked Andrew, what did you learn surprised you? And he's like, well, on that check, they take 42% right off the top. I'm like, the taxes, brother. And then I asked him again. I'm like, or he said that, and then I asked him, well, what really surprised you, aside from the 42? He says, they're trying to replace you every day. And I think that is, if guys understand that, and that's not against the guys that leave early, but that's how, like Coach says, how hard it is to get drafted. Each team only has 7 spots. You had, over almost like 200 juniors come out. You have all the seniors. So you got all these guys that are trying to get 256 draft spots. It is going to be hard to be drafted, and a lot of quality guys are going to go undrafted. And it's just a limited amount of numbers. All 53 guys are on that squad at the end of the season expect to be back next year. And if you're going to make it, that means some of those guys have to be gone.
And that doesn't even include the guys that end up being free agents and come to your team.
Oh, yeah. I'm saying
but I think in the case of our guys, the fact they're playing at Georgia now, when you got Bill Belichick walking up to Kirby Smart today and hugging him, I mean, you got credibility here. The coaches know that they know how to play pro ball coming out of here.
They perform,
And so I think
Rookie of the Year,
you're going to get plenty of chances to get drafted or to sign a free agent. That's all you can ask for.
Yep.
Somebody was asking about numbers, if we had numbers for the pro day. Here's some bench press numbers. Lamont Galliard, 18. I'll just hit a few of the highlights.
That's the most ridiculous thing there. I mean, who cares on the bench? I want to hear some times, man.
Well, like I said, Jarvis Wilson with 24. I like that number from him. 22 for Jay Hayes, 23 Kendall Baker. Our 40s. So these are
Terry with 16.
What did Walker run?
I don't think he ran today.
Pro either, did he?
I don't think he ran today.
He still got the groin.
So,
he's going to get drafted.
He's going to be fine. And I'll tell you this:
what about Ridley?
Whoever, he did not run today. He participated in agility drills. But I think that. I think that whoever gets DeAndre Walker is going to get a very, very good player, a guy who's going to play in the league for several years. Some unofficial 40 times. I'll hit your highlights here, guys you might be interested in. These are very unofficial, hand time by our Anthony Dasher. He said he consulted with some of the other beat guys around him to kind of settle on a few things. 4.81 for Isaac Nada.
Who said that somebody else had him at a 4.59.
So – yeah, take it for what you will.
His dad,
Jason Stanley, with a 4.48. I heard that he ran very well. A guy who
he can run that.
He can fly.
Absolutely. DeAndre Baker with 4.5 flat. He said afterwards in his post, post pro day interview that he was told that he broke that he got into the 4.4s. So if that's the case, he said that's what he wanted to do.
I'll tell you, he is a 4.44 guy.
Sure,
we'll do it every time. And the thing he can do though, he can line up and he can jam you, and he can be physical at the point of attack.
Sometimes too much.
That tape is going to be so good for him. He's going in first round.
The other one here that a lot of people were interested in, Elijah Holyfield, 4.78 for Elijah.
He's not a burner, folks. He's not going to run a 4.5. He might not run a 4.6. If he runs a 4.7, that's what you're 4.7, mid 4.7s. That's Elijah Holyfield.
Now,
but here's the thing. Good luck tackling him.
Well, I was going to say.
You see him run that kickoff back against Notre Dame?
Yeah. Did you see him run that kid over against LSU?
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about a 4.7. Look, that 4.7 could get momentum behind it.
What do you got for Jay Hayes? Did he run?
We got a 4.92 for Jay Hayes.
Hey, that guy's going to get on a pro team. He got in a tough situation here. He was an in-between player. He was an outside 4-3 in. He wasn't big enough to be a 3-4 tackle. He gave some good leadership to us in the summer workout program. He did so many good things. But I think he'll play. I think he'll get up there and make a difference.
I got 3 or 4 texts. Everybody want to know how Lamont Galliard did, and I'll put it to you this way: Lamont is very well loved by the Georgia community. Former players, a couple former coaches hitting me up, want to know how he looked today. And I'm like, sorry, I'm not there. I'm sick as a dog. I can't be there. But from what we saw at Pro Day, and at Indianapolis. Lamont is a very talented kid, but I just thought it was interesting. Of all the guys I'm being asked about, there's the popular guys, and then there's Lamont Galliard, who everybody just loves.
Well, and I think about Lamont, too. He strikes me as a guy who maybe won't test off the charts, but he's – go watch the film. Watch the film.
Hey, he saw McKinley.
Go watch the film.
Playing.
Let me just point this out about – you got all these – centers around the country that their people are looking at to get drafted. A lot of them from the SEC. Who was on the all-conference coaches first team?
Absolutely.
When the coach picks you, when you get picked on the coaches all-conference, the films don't lie, man.
This ain't the SID doing that.
Yeah. This isn't just all. I mean,
the All-State Good Works team.
If you make the coaches all-conference team.
Yeah, I'm with you there. That's what I said. And we asked him, are you the best center in the SEC? And he goes, yes. And it wasn't braggadocio. It wasn't, cockiness. He's like, I am. And he was.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, according to the coaches.
Only one that thinks it.
So, point being, if you can be the best center in the SEC, you can be one of the best centers of the country. Teams need him. He's going to be able to – those defenses in the NFL are not going to confuse him. He's going to get the right calls in. He's going to play. He's your next – he's your Ben Jones, David Andrews. Georgia's known for putting centers in the league multiple years.
I don't mean to raise any eyebrows, but I heard there were a lot of Falcons O-line guys watching him closely today. We'll see. We'll see. Look, I'm not going to get my hopes up about the Falcons drafting anybody from Georgia.
When are the Falcons going to take somebody from Georgia? We got to get Coach Quinn over here.
I'll tell you what, you got a good opportunity. I think DeAndre Baker and Lamont Galliard, 2 positions of need for him this year. They need a good young guy in the secondary. They need help on D-line first off. So I think that's probably where they'll spend the first pick.
I'm going to say this again about coaches. Late rounds. You never know where you're going to end up. You might be the next head of rivals if he's not. You never know. But in 1994, we played VMI. The defensive line coach was Dan Quinn, and the receiver coach was Mike Tomlin.
Wow.
And we beat him like a complete tom-tom.
I will say this. I don't normally stump for guys, but I hope the Falcons have signed 2 tight ends in this offseason, but they're older guys. Luke Stocker was one from Tennessee, and then I forget who the other guy was. But I really hope that they will maybe look at Isaac Nada in the second round. If he was standing around in the third. I'd said yesterday this is a guy who reminds me a lot of what Jason Witten did.
Well, he'd be good because they did. They got all that double coverage on Julio. You look at what all these other guys do, and Ridley and all those other guys for him. I think Nada's going to be really good in the pros.
I'm rooting to see Nada
because he's going to catch the ball if you throw it to him.
Exactly.
And the thing about him, he's a young player. He's not. I don't even think he's 20 yet, is he? I mean, he might be 20.
But here's the thing: you put him on the kick return team. He's going to lay somebody out on a block. He's going to be back there on your punt team, and if you need be, you can put him on punt coverage. Because that guy could tackle you.
And I can say we're going to have.
He's a special.
Don't you think we're going to
play anywhere on special teams?
Don't you think we're going to have at least 9 guys drafted? I'd say everybody went to that. Everybody went to the
Combine.
Combine will get drafted. Maybe Holyfield might not, but
he'll be first among the snaps
but
up.
I think Hayes could get drafted. I really do.
Huh. All right,
maybe. Anyway, that's all the time we have for this week's show, to be honest. I mean, we could talk for another hour. But
that was good. I appreciate you coming off sick as a dog bed.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to tell you, this Academia Brewing Company medicine right here.
You had some aspirin in there?
It's good for what else? Yeah, aspirin,
alcohol
codeine,
is a natural antiseptic.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to take a little shower in this beer here. Actually, and one of the great things, if you want to try that Hunker Down Brown, that's good. That's good stuff.
No doubt.
I'm just saying. So I'm going to go home and I'll put up the show for all the people that didn't get to watch it, so that they can listen to the podcast. And then I'll probably snuggle into, nice comfy blanket and a couple cans of that Hunker Down Brown.
So you're going to go cut it off.
Yeah. Anyway, next week we'll be hopefully back at our regular time, noon on Tuesday. If not, we'll let you know what time we're going to do it. But just a heads up that that is our normal time. We should be back there next week with a lot more practice having been seen. So, yeah. Oh, and Jake's going to go to the opening. Where's that going to be?
It's at Buford High School.
Buford High School. So, yeah, pick up my
is
cocktail
that like
sauce.
League 11 too?
Yes, I think so.
So he'll have that. And I didn't even talk about the stuff that I saw down in New Orleans. So we'll have a lot of recruiting stuff for you next week, plus a couple extra days of practice to talk about next week at noon on Tuesday. Take care.
That's it for this episode of the UGA Sports Live Podcast. Tune in next week for more Georgia Bulldogs news and notes from Athens.